Okay, year 11, we're picking up where we left off. It wasn't intended to be quite the cliffhanger, but here we go. We're going to have a look at the band 4 answer after that band 3 one. So, again, the ideas themselves are really similar. It's the quality of the exploration that makes the difference. So, I'll just move that down so you can see the whole thing. There we go. Right, so source A conveys the horrific consequences of a sudden storm on Mount Everest when 30 climbers become trapped in the death zone and are left exposed and fighting for their lives. Again, look at how those quotations are embedded. And you can see in the band 4 criteria down here, it talks about judicious references, so really well chosen, precise ones, and the use of textual detail relevant to the focus of the question. So are these quotations relevant? Absolutely, they're really well chosen, and you can see how this candidate's embedded them into their writing. So 3 Indian climbers are stranded, exhausted, and with their oxygen supplies running out, which suggests they were caught unawares by the unexpected severity of the weather. Again, that idea isn't that different to what we saw at band 3, but let's see where they go with it. Maybe more significantly, 2 commercial expeditions were strung out between the South Col and the summit, showing the weather attacks both recreational climbers and business enterprises who would consider the safety of their clients as important. This implies that the effects are catastrophic for even the most prepared of people, because there were 8 fatalities, the greatest loss of life in any 24-hour period on that peak. So the thing that makes this a band 4 answer, it's that look at where the detail is from in this text. They've pulled together quotations, they've summarised. That's what this question's about, summarising evidence. So they've brought those differences, those quotations from all over the text, and they've also made some really perceptive points about how it's not just that it's fatal, but it's fatal to even people who were prepared, as well as those who maybe weren't. This is different to source B, which focuses on a less traumatic event. So we've got a really clear difference. A heavy snowfall in London in the 1800s. The people are cold and wrapped in thick coats, but the effects are not life-threatening. Even the homeless girl who sleeps on a step is only cold as a frog rather than hypothermic. Most people stay inside, but those who do venture out are suffering little more than frozen beards, headaches and cold fingers. Overall, the people in source B have some sense of control over the weather, and it merely inconveniences their daily lives, whereas in source A, it exposes the vulnerability of the climbers and is life-threatening. So fully satisfying band 4 there. It's perceptive, really well chosen quotations, and as I said, the way the quotations are chosen from across the text, and really clear differences, really thoughtful answer there. So that's why that would get your band 4. That would get 7 or 8 out of 8. Okay. As we've said before, year 11, it does make sense to do question 4 immediately after question 2. So just hop over question 3 for now, and we will go back to it. So it's because they both ask you to compare. So there's a potential here for you to do a bit of recycling and being efficient, and maybe using some of those points that you used for question 2 in question 4, but doing something slightly different with them. So in terms of what question 4 is asking of you, let's have a little look at it. So for this question, you need to refer to the whole of source B together with, the whole of source A together with source B, and you are going to compare how the 2 writers convey their different perspectives on the extreme weather conditions. Okay. Now, the key words in there are the compare how. Right, because it's asking you about how, that is asking you to talk about writer's method. So if you look at the bullet points in this question here, you are being asked to compare the different perspectives, so the different viewpoints that are being shown about the weather. You're being asked to compare the methods. Okay, so this is a what, how, why question. So you've been asked to compare the methods that the writers use to convey, to put across their different perspectives, and you obviously need to support your answer with references to both texts, which I think goes without saying, really. This one's worth 16 marks. Timing wise, you need to be spending about 20 minutes on it, so it is quite a small amount of time to do a lot in. That's why we need to practice that exam technique. This little picture at the bottom of this slide here shows you the structure that your answer needs to have. Because you're comparing, what you should be really doing is linking together your ideas. So you might talk about how they show different perspectives on the danger of the situation. And then you would dig into with a what, how, why from one text, and then in contrast look at the what, how, why from a second text. Again, I've got example answers for you to have a little look at so we can see how these answers fulfill that marking criteria. Now, down the left hand side of this screen, you've got the mark scheme. So you've got band 1, band 2, band 3, band 4 again. So what I'd suggest you do is that you pause this and have a little read through there so that you know exactly what it is that you're looking for. But you can see that the bullet points link to each other. So the first bullet point is all about the comparing. So is this candidate making a link between the texts? Second bullet point is all about the writer's methods. So how confidently they're using subject terminology to talk about language features. The third bullet point is all about quotations. And then the fourth bullet point is how well you understand the perspective that's being shown. Really, that's where you're digging in with the why bit, what the effect that writer's method has and how it conveys their viewpoint. So let's have a little look at some examples. So here's the first one, where this candidate said, source A is told like a story, source B is a diary. In source A, there's a big storm on the mountain, and the writer, Matt Dickinson, doesn't like it. So it's very simple, but there is a viewpoint there. But in source B, when it snows in London, the writer uses the word beautiful, which tells us he thinks it's nice. So what this candidate has done, because the examiners are looking for ways to mark you positively, it has made reference to a difference, okay, between the two different viewpoints. We've got two different viewpoints, that this one doesn't like it, but this one thinks it's nice. We have got a textual reference. We've got the word beautiful. We haven't really got any reference to writer's methods, though, here. We've got the word, but we could do with that being some more sophisticated, talking about it being the adjective beautiful, rather than just saying the word. Okay, so that one would get band 1. Right, this one here, source A is a factual account of a terrible snowstorm on Mount Everest, and source B is an extract from a diary written when the snow fell in London in 1867. So both, the answer is trying to show that it knows what genre they're dealing with. Both writers use the first person. So there's an example of the writer's method to describe the extreme weather conditions. So we get their different points of view. Okay. In source A, Matt Dickinson hates the weather because it's dangerous and people were killed. So we've got a really clear viewpoint here that Matt Dickinson hates the weather because it's dangerous and people were killed. He describes the scream of the storm. So we've got a quotation, and then we've got which is a metaphor that makes it sound noisy and scary. Okay, so we've got writer's method, and we've got a little bit of inference into it there as well, saying how that reinforces his viewpoint. The writer of source B has a different opinion when snow falls in London because he uses adjectives like beautiful to show how pretty it is and how much he enjoys it. London is usually full of noisy traffic, and he really likes it when everything goes quiet because of the weather. So there's a really clear attempt here to compare those different viewpoints. So that would get you a band 2. This one here, again, the ideas in here are really similar, but just look at how they get more sophisticated as it goes through. So again, we've got this sense of the genre. It's a factual account of an unusually strong storm on Everest, which leaves 8 climbers dead, while source B is a diary extract that follows the writer's journey through the streets of London after a heavy snowfall in 1867. Using first-person accounts, both writers offer very different perspectives of the extreme weather conditions, providing the reader with a strong sense of place and atmosphere. So we've had a bit of an introduction there to what the different viewpoints are. Matt Dickinson's reaction to the sudden intense storm is shock and horror. So there's his viewpoint. How does he feel? He's shocked, he's horrified, as he realises the danger faced by the climbers. This is reinforced through the use of onomatopoeic words such as scream and howl. So that identification of onomatopoeia, that's an example of a clear writer's method. Suggesting the wind is personified, so personification, again, we've got a writer's method, as a supernatural being sent there to punish them. He's also devastated by the number of people killed as a consequence of the sudden blizzard. The writer of source B has a very different perspective on the weather. He finds the snowfall peaceful and enjoyable, using adjectives like beautiful, exquisite and charming, suggests how he appreciates the positive impact that the snow has on the city, which contrasts with the negative, dangerous impact of source A. He loves the atmosphere created by the snow, which transforms a noisy, bustling street into absolute silence. The use of quotations is nice there, and they've talked about the adjectives. Maybe to improve this, they could be talking about the connotations of these adjectives, maybe talking about the semantic field of beauty or peace or calm, and just digging that a little bit further. But it's good, it's clear, it's relevant, and for that reason, it gets a band 3. Okay, again, it's going to be fairly obvious that this next one is your band 4. So let's look at what this one does to get those top marks. So the writers of source A and B have contrasting perspectives on the weather due to their very diverse circumstances. So really concisely saying, right, they've got different views because they're in different situations. So Matt Dickinson is facing a life and death ordeal on Everest, and Arthur Munby is exploring the silent snowscape of 1867 London. By employing the first person in the form of a factual account and a diary extract, the writers offer an insight into their different perspectives on time, place and atmosphere. So in source A, Dickinson conveys a strong feeling of vulnerability. So there's your viewpoint, that he feels vulnerable when faced with an unprecedented storm. He achieves this through personifying. So we've got writer's method there, personifying the wind as a bullying force. So that quotation really well chosen, judiciously chosen to support that writer's method. The personification is describing it as a bully. Thus implying Mother Nature is treating the climbers with contempt, punishing them, maybe even toying with them until they experience nothing but fear and intimidation. The difference between this answer and that last one is that little bit of digging there, where they've really explained how that language choice conveys that viewpoint. So that's the why bit of your what, how, why. This is in complete contrast to the writer of source B, who walks the streets of London in contemplative silence. His focus is on the aesthetic charm rather than its debilitating effects on the city and its homeless. Far from Dickinson's view of the weather as a life-threatening force, Munby appreciates the positive transformation which the weather brings, using the phrase an exquisite tracery of white branches to describe the beauty of the scene. As well as the visual changes, he's delighted at the muted sounds that the snow brings in comparison to the roar and rush of wheels that the city usually suffers. This is in direct contrast to the writer of source A, who is terrified by the noise of the storm. His fear of this almost supernatural force is again shown through the use of personification. So it just so happens that the methods are the same here, they could have been different. The choice of the nouns, so we've got accurate terminology there, scream and howl, words which are commonly used as adjectives, not quite there, but they try and mark you positively, so they wouldn't mark you down for that. Emphasises the horror of the situation. I think they meant verbs rather than adjectives there. A horror that culminates in the death of 8 climbers. So that, year 11, is your band 4 answer. That's your model one. But hopefully by going through the 4 of them, you can see how actually what starts off as, the idea is the same at the heart of them. It's how they've been written about, that idea of making that connection between the two texts, digging into the what, how, why in text A, and then what, how, why in text B. Okay, so that's your strategy for question 4.